I don't believe for a second that William and Catherine were massive fans of Suits. And based on everything I've read in comment sections across the internet, neither do you. So here's my question. Why does every documentary, every retrospective, every timeline of the Sussex-Wales relationship keep repeating Harry's version like it's proven fact? That's what we're going to examine today. Not whether Harry is lying, not whether Meghan is the villain. Something more specific, more uncomfortable for the people who are supposed to hold power to account. We're going to look at why journalists stopped doing their jobs. Let me be clear about what this is. This isn't a Meghan hit piece. This isn't rage bait designed to make you angry. This is a calm, methodical examination of a single claim that has been repeated hundreds of times without anyone asking the most basic question. Does this make sense? Catherine, as she prefers to be called, deserves better than having unverified claims about her viewing habits repeated as established fact. You, the audience, deserve better than being treated like you can't evaluate evidence for yourselves. So let's evaluate it together. The claim originates from one source and one source only. Prince Harry's memoir Spare, published January 10th, 2023. The book was ghostwritten by J.R. Moringer, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author known for his memoir, The Tender Bar. In it, Harry describes the first meeting between Meghan and his brother and sister-in-law. According to coverage from Time magazine, published January 6, 2023, Harry characterized William and Catherine as big fans of the television program. That's it. That's the entire evidentiary foundation for a claim that has since appeared in countless articles, documentaries, and timelines. One person said it, in a memoir, written years after the alleged conversation, and everyone repeated it. But here's where it gets interesting, because when you actually examine the context, when you look at what Suits was, where it aired, who watched it, and what William and Catherine were actually doing during those years, the claim doesn't just seem unverified, it seems actively implausible. Let's start with the television. Suits premiered on USA Network on June 23, 2011. Created by Aaron Korsh and produced by Universal Content Productions. Now, if you're British, that network name might not mean much to you. USA Network is what's called basic cable in America, a tier below the major broadcast networks like ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. Those broadcast networks transmit free over-the-air signals. Anyone with a television and an antenna can watch them. Cable channels like USA Network require a subscription package. This matters. During 2011 to 2016, USA Network's primetime programming averaged between 2 and 4 million viewers per original episode. Compare that to broadcast network dramas, which routinely drew 8 to 15 million. Suits was a solid performer for cable. It was not a cultural phenomenon. The show centered on Harvey Specter, a senior partner at a fictional New York law firm played by Gabriel Macht, and Mike Ross, his fraudulently credentialed associate played by Patrick J. Adams. It was competently made television. It had loyal viewers, but it was not breaking into the national conversation the way prestige cable dramas on HBO or even AMC managed to do. And that's in America, where it actually aired on a reasonably prominent channel. In the United Kingdom, Suits began broadcasting in January 2012. The acquiring channel was Dave. Dave. I need to spend some time on Dave, because the absurdity of the claim becomes crystal clear once you understand what this channel actually was. Dave is a digital channel owned by UKTV, a joint venture between BBC Studios and Discovery Incorporated. During the period we're discussing, 2012 through 2016, Dave's programming identity had absolutely nothing to do with prestige drama. Nothing. The channel existed in a completely different television universe from serious scripted content. The channel's actual tagline during this period was, the home of witty banter. Not the home of compelling legal drama. Not the destination for American imports. Witty banter. That tells you everything about how the channel positioned itself and who it was trying to reach. Dave's flagship programming consisted almost entirely of comedy repeats and panel shows. Top Gear reruns dominated the schedule. QI episodes played on rotation. Have I Got News for You filled evening slots. Mock the Week. Would I Lie to You? The channel functioned essentially as a repository for BBC comedy content that had already aired elsewhere, repackaged for a specific demographic. And what was that demographic? Men aged 16 to 34. Young blokes looking for laughs after work. The channel's marketing leaned heavily into what media analysts at the time called lad culture. Programming designed to appeal to young men who wanted undemanding entertainment. Beer and sofa television. Background noise for the flat share. Look at what else aired on Dave during the years Suits was supposedly turning William and Catherine into devoted fans. Storage Hunters, an American reality show about people bidding on abandoned storage units. Lizard Lick Towing, a reality series following a North Carolina towing company. Red Dwarf X, the revival of the sci-fi comedy. Auction Hunters, American Pickers, Man vs. Food. This was the programming environment. Reality shows about storage lockers and towing trucks, competitive eating, comedy reruns, and tucked somewhere in that schedule, a legal procedural about New York corporate lawyers. The channel did not market Suits as event television. It did not build promotional campaigns around it. There were no bus-side advertisements, no billboards, no must-see TV positioning. Dave acquired the show because American content was cheap and helped fill schedule gaps between Top Gear episodes and panel show repeats. In 2013, Dave recorded a 1.8% share of total UK viewing. That made it the most-watched non-PSB multi-channel among young men. But let's put that number in context. BBC One commanded approximately 21% share. ITV held approximately 15%. Channel 4 sat around 6%. Dave occupied a fraction of the television landscape. A fraction of a fraction, really, when you consider that legal drama wasn't even the channel's focus. Picture the programming grid. Monday evening on Dave, 2013. Top Gear rerun at 7 p.m., QI at 8, Storage Hunters at 9, Suits buried somewhere in the late-night schedule, or maybe midweek, competing for attention against American Pickers and Lizard Lick Towing. Now picture William and Catherine, the future king and queen of the United Kingdom, parents to the heir to the throne, veterans of state dinners and international summits, fixtures at Wimbledon and charity galas. Are we supposed to believe they were scrolling through Dave's schedule between Storage Hunters and Lizard Lick Towing to catch the latest episode of an American legal procedural? The cultural mismatch is almost comical. Dave was marketing to young men who wanted to watch people argue over storage lockers. William was flying search and rescue helicopters for the Royal Air Force. Catherine was navigating her transformation from private citizen to the most photographed woman in Britain. Neither of them fits the Dave demographic. Neither of them would have naturally encountered the channel while looking for something to watch. Compare this to what British audiences were actually watching during those years. Downton Abbey on ITV drew between 9 and 13 million viewers per episode during its peak seasons. Called a Midwife on BBC One averaged 8 to 10 million. EastEnders maintained 6 to 8 million for regular episodes. These were the shows that penetrated British consciousness. These were the programs that generated magazine covers and newspaper columns and water cooler conversations. These were the dramas that palace staff might have discussed, that royal relatives might have mentioned, that the late Queen herself reportedly watched. Suits on Dave? We don't even have publicly accessible barb ratings for it. The broadcaster's Audience Research Board tracks UK viewership, and Suits' specific numbers don't appear in their accessible databases. That's how marginal it was. Not even noteworthy enough to generate publicly discussed ratings data. The show wasn't just obscure, it was invisible. Lost in a schedule of storage auctions and towing disputes, airing on a channel whose entire brand identity revolved around young men seeking witty banter. Now, are we supposed to believe that the future King and Queen of the United Kingdom, two of the most photographed people on Earth, managing demanding schedules of royal duties, raising young children, living public lives that subjected their every preference to media scrutiny, were devoted fans of a legal procedural airing on the channel known for Top Gear reruns and lizard lick towing? Because no one noticed? No one mentioned it? No palace source ever leaked it? No interview ever referenced it? Let me show you what we do know about their lives during those years, and I want to be specific about this, because the timeline matters. William and Catherine married on April 29, 2011, 2 months before Suits even premiered in America, 8 months before it reached UK screens. Their wedding at Westminster Abbey drew an estimated global television audience of 2 billion people. Catherine transitioned from private citizen to the most photographed woman in Britain within weeks. From 2010 to September 2013, William served as a search and rescue helicopter pilot with the Royal Air Force, stationed at RAF Valley in Anglesey, Wales. This wasn't ceremonial. It was operational. Shift work, training certifications, emergency call-outs that could come at any hour. The couple maintained a residence in Anglesey during this period, removed from central London and the primary royal residences. I want to walk you through what this actually looked like, because abstract descriptions of shift work don't capture the reality. Search and rescue operations at RAF Valley ran around the clock. William flew Sea King helicopters on missions that could be called at any moment. Hikers stranded on Snowdonia, sailors in distress in the Irish Sea, casualties from road accidents requiring airlift to trauma centers. The work was unpredictable by definition. Emergencies don't schedule themselves. RAF helicopter crews typically worked 24-hour shifts. You'd report to the base, conduct pre-flight checks, attend briefings, then remain on standby for whatever calls came in. Some shifts meant multiple missions. Some meant waiting for hours, then scrambling at 3 a.m. for a mountain rescue. The physical and mental demands were substantial. Flying in Welsh weather, over difficult terrain, with lives depending on your precision. Between shifts, there were training requirements, currency flights to maintain certifications, simulator sessions, medical recertifications, physical fitness standards. The RAF doesn't let pilots fly rescue missions without ongoing qualification checks. Let's look at 2013 specifically, the year Prince George was born. William was still stationed at RAF Valley until September. He was working operational search and rescue shifts while Catherine was pregnant with their first child. In July, George was born. Within weeks, William was back at work, because that's what operational military positions require. But the SAR work was only part of the picture. Consider the royal engagements layered on top of the flight schedule. In 2012, William and Catherine undertook a tour of Malaysia, Singapore, Solomon Islands, and Tuvalu as part of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee celebrations. That's 4 countries across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. State dinners, official meetings, dozens of public appearances, all while William was maintaining his REF qualification and rotation schedule. The logistics alone are staggering. Fly a search and rescue shift in Wales on Monday. Attend a charity event in London on Wednesday. Prepare for a state visit scheduled for the following month. Maintain the training certifications required to operate military helicopters safely. Oh, and your wife is pregnant with the future King of England. and every tabloid in the country is photographing her every appearance. Where exactly in this schedule was William supposed to be catching up on an American legal drama airing on Dave between storage hunters and lizard lick towing? Prince George was born July 22, 2013, first child, heir to the heir to the heir. The birth generated massive international media coverage. Any parent knows what the first year with a newborn looks like. Now imagine that year while also being third in line to the throne, with press photographers documenting every public appearance. In September 2013, William left the RAF to focus on royal duties and conservation work. But in June 2015, with a nearly 2-year-old and a newborn at home, he began work as a pilot with the East Anglian Air Ambulance, a position he held until July 2017. Again, this wasn't ceremonial. The East Anglian Air Ambulance responds to genuine medical emergencies, cardiac arrests, traffic accidents, serious trauma cases, where helicopter transport can mean the difference between life and death. William worked 4 days on, 4 days off, flying missions from Cambridge Airport. Think about what a typical on period looked like. 4 consecutive days of 12-hour shifts starting at 7 a.m. Flight operations, emergency responses, post-mission debriefs. Then 4 days off, except those days included royal engagements, official correspondence, charity work, and parenting responsibilities for a toddler and, from May 2015, an infant daughter. Princess Charlotte arrived May 2, 2015. Second child. More sleepless nights, more adjustment, more demands on whatever time remained after flight shifts and royal duties. Let me give you a concrete picture of what a single month might have looked like. Take October 2015. William was working his air ambulance rotation. 4 days on, 4 days off. Charlotte was 5 months old. George was 2 years old. The family was preparing for a major tour of India and Bhutan, scheduled for spring 2016. In a typical 4-day off period, William might have attended a charity event in London, met with Kensington Palace staff about upcoming engagements, participated in a video call about conservation initiatives, spent time with 2 children under 3, handled correspondence related to his patronages, and squeezed in whatever family time remained. Then he'd go back to flying air ambulance missions for 4 days. Actual emergencies, actual patients, actual life or death decisions made in real time from the cockpit of a helicopter. The density is relentless. There is no padding in this schedule. There is no Saturday afternoon to binge legal dramas on Dave built into the calendar. Every hour is accounted for by operational duties, royal obligations, and the demands of raising young children in the public eye. Throughout 2011 to 2016, the couple undertook royal engagements across the globe. Let me list them specifically, because the cumulative weight matters. Tours to Canada and California in 2011, Malaysia, Singapore, Solomon Islands, and Tuvalu in 2012, Australia and New Zealand in 2014, a 3-week tour with an infant, India and Bhutan in 2016, Canada again in 2016. Cross-reference this with Suits' UK broadcast schedule. The show premiered on Dave in January 2012. Season 2 would have aired later in 2012 into 2013. Season 3 through 2013 into 2014. By the time Harry met Meghan in July 2016, the show was in its 6th American season. Where in William's schedule, between RAF Valley shifts, newborn Prince George, the Australia tour, the air ambulance role, newborn Princess Charlotte, and constant international travel, was he supposed to be cultivating deep fandom for a legal procedural on Dave? Did they watch television? Of course they did. They're human beings. Press reports have referenced their interest in various programs. Homeland has been mentioned. Game of Thrones has been mentioned. Shows that achieved mainstream cultural penetration. Shows that generated significant press coverage and water cooler conversation. Shows that aired on prominent channels and won major awards. Not legal procedurals on Dave. And here's what's particularly striking about the evidentiary record. There is no public record from 2011 to 2016 indicating that either William or Catherine expressed any interest in Suits. None. Zero. Official royal social media accounts, managed through Kensington Palace, contain no references to the program. Interviews given by the couple during this period don't mention it. Press coverage of their television viewing habits, when it has appeared, has referenced British programming including Downton Abbey, which the late Queen Elizabeth II reportedly watched. Kensington Palace communications from this entire period and all subsequent years have never referenced Suits in any context. The sole source remains Harry's memoir, published in 2023, describing a conversation from years earlier, with no corroboration from anyone. But here's the thing that really bothers me. Even if we set aside everything about William and Catherine's schedules and the channel and the ratings, even if we assume they somehow found time to watch a legal drama on Dave, there's still the question of Meghan Markle herself. How famous was she? Within the cast of Suits, Meghan Markle occupied a supporting position. She played Rachel Zane, a paralegal at the fictional law firm, a love interest for Patrick J. Adams's character. The role served the central Harvey Mike storyline. It wasn't the central storyline itself. Gabriel Macht and Patrick J. Adams received top billing as the leads. Gina Torres played managing partner Jessica Pearson in a prominent supporting role. Rick Hoffman and Sarah Rafferty rounded out the regular cast. Markle appeared in a recurring capacity in Season 1 before being promoted to series regular, but her screen time remained secondary throughout. Her career before Suits included appearances on CSI New York, Fringe, and Castle. She'd been a briefcase model on Deal or No Deal, the woman who opens the cases while contestants choose numbers. In 2014, she launched a lifestyle blog called The Tig. These are the markers of a working actress building a career. They are not the markers of mainstream fame. Industry metrics tell the story. IMDb. Star Meter rankings track search interest in entertainment figures. Markle's rankings during this period show no exceptional positioning prior to news of her relationship with Prince Harry. She wasn't being Googled, she wasn't trending, she wasn't penetrating public consciousness. And here's the evidence that matters most. UK press coverage of Meghan Markle prior to October 2016 is effectively non-existent. I want you to understand what that means. British tabloids cover American celebrities extensively when they achieve sufficient fame. The Kardashians get regular UK coverage. Major Hollywood stars get covered. Breakthrough performers get discussed. That's what tabloids do. That's their entire business model. Celebrity content that generates clicks and purchases. Meghan Markle did not receive this coverage. She was not photographed by British paparazzi before Harry. She was not profiled in British magazines. She did not appear on British chat shows. A search of archived coverage from The Times, The Telegraph, The Guardian, Daily Mail, and Daily Express from 2011 through September 2016 produces no substantive profiles, interviews, or feature articles about Meghan Markle as an individual celebrity. The Express, Mail, Sun, Mirror, and Telegraph, papers that live and die on celebrity coverage, did not find her newsworthy. The absence of coverage is itself evidence. If British tabloids, whose entire business model depends on celebrity content, did not find Meghan Markle newsworthy enough to cover before her royal connection emerged, why would we believe that British royals were devotedly following her career? This is where the commenter logic becomes powerful. I've seen versions of this argument in comment sections again and again, written by Americans with direct experience of the U.S. television landscape. I'm in America. I had cable. I watched USA Network sometimes, and I didn't know who Meghan Markle was. Think about what that means. Americans who actually subscribed to cable television. Americans who had access to USA Network in their channel packages. Americans living in the country where Suits aired on a reasonably prominent channel, receiving USA Network's own promotional efforts. Many of them didn't know her name. The level of name recognition required to hear Meghan Markle from Suits and respond with genuine enthusiasm would have necessitated either dedicated viewership of that specific program or independent research into its cast. Casual exposure doesn't produce recognition of supporting cast members by name. That's not how television fandom works. Quick, name the supporting cast members of any show you've casually watched, not the leads. The supporting players, the love interests, the paralegals. You probably can't, even for shows you've seen multiple times, because that's how television consumption works for most people. So we have a claim that William and Catherine were fans of a show that aired on Dave between storage hunters and lizard lick towing, a show whose supporting cast wasn't famous enough for British tabloids to notice. A show that Americans with cable subscriptions didn't necessarily follow. And journalists have repeated this claim for 2 years without once asking, does this make any sense? Let me show you exactly how the repetition works. In the days following Spare's publication, and the leaks that preceded it, with journalists reporting contents as early as January 5, 2023, media outlets cataloged the memoir's claims. Time magazine included the Suits claim in coverage published January 6, 2023, presenting it as part of a summary of what Harry said about his relationship with William and Catherine. The framing positioned it as Prince Harry Says content. BBC News covered Spare's publication on January 6th and 7th, 2023, focusing on the memoir's more dramatic claims. The accounts of physical altercation between the brothers, the details about family relationships. The Suits details circulated within the broader media ecosystem. Hello Magazine returned to the claim in January 2024, 1 full year after publication. Their article titled, 9 Things Prince Harry Said About Princess Kate in Spare 1 Year On, cataloged various memoir assertions. The Suits claim appeared alongside other statements. No independent verification, no contextual analysis, just repetition. Documentary productions have since incorporated the claim into timelines of the Sussex-Wales relationship. It appears in background material establishing how William and Catherine first encountered Meghan. Each instance traces to Spare as the source, with no additional verification cited. Watch the language carefully in any of this coverage. You'll see constructions like Harry wrote, or according to Spare, or Harry claimed. These framings are technically accurate as sourcing attribution. The outlets aren't lying about where the claim comes from. But here's what's missing. No independent verification. No notation that the claim hasn't been corroborated by any other source. No contextual information about Suits' UK availability that would allow readers to evaluate plausibility. No professional skepticism. No interview with anyone who might have witnessed William and Catherine discussing the show. No palace source confirming or denying. Nothing. This is the failure. Not fabrication. Omission. Journalists accurately reported what Harry claimed, but responsible journalism requires more than transcription. When a claim seems implausible on its face, when it concerns an obscure program, when no corroborating evidence exists, when the only source is an individual with an acknowledged perspective on disputed events, professional skepticism should inform coverage. That skepticism has been largely absent. And it's not like journalists don't know how to be skeptical. Watch how they cover other claims. Watch how they note when sources might have bias. Watch how they provide context that allows readers to evaluate credibility. That toolkit exists, they just chose not to use it here. Let me compile the evidentiary record for you. This is your ammunition. These are the facts you can cite when someone repeats this claim as though it were established truth. Evidence supporting the claim that William and Catherine were fans of Suits. Prince Harry's assertion in his 2023 memoir, Spare. One source, one claim. One person's recollection of a private conversation written years later with the assistance of a ghostwriter. Evidence undermining the claim's plausibility. Suits aired on Dave, a digital channel commanding 1.8% of total UK viewing share. The channel positioned itself as comedy and entertainment for young men seeking witty banter, not drama for royal couples in their 30s. The programming environment included storage hunters, lizard lick towing, and American pickers. No barb ratings for Suits specifically appear in publicly accessible records. No statement from William or Catherine, public or reported through palace sources, references Suits. No interview with either individual mentions the program. No royal social media content references the program. No contemporaneous media report from 2011 to 2016 connects William or Catherine to the program. No photograph or documented appearance links them to the cast or production. Meghan Markle was not the subject of UK media coverage before October 2016, demonstrating her fame level did not penetrate British consciousness. William worked operational roles as search and rescue pilot and air ambulance pilot during the period in question, flying 24-hour shifts and maintaining certification requirements. The couple had 2 children during this period. They undertook numerous international tours requiring weeks abroad. One claim versus that entire mountain of context suggesting it doesn't add up. And still, journalists repeat it. I want to be precise about what I'm arguing here. I'm not claiming Harry deliberately lied. Memory is unreliable. Recollections of conversations years later can be inaccurate. Perhaps William made a polite comment about recognizing the show's name. Perhaps Catherine nodded along during an awkward first meeting. Perhaps Harry interpreted social courtesy as enthusiastic fandom. Perhaps the ghostwriter shaped a brief anecdote into something more definitive than the memory warranted. Or perhaps none of it happened the way he remembers. We don't know. We can't know, because the only source is one person's memoir, written years after the fact, ghostwritten by a collaborator, published as part of a commercial arrangement. Spare is classified as memoir, a genre understood to present one person's recollections and interpretations. It is not investigative journalism. It is not court testimony. It is not verified fact. What I am claiming, what the evidence firmly supports, is that journalists should have noted this context. They should have mentioned that no independent verification exists. They should have included information about Suits' marginal UK presence. They should have exercised the basic professional skepticism their profession is supposed to embody. They didn't. And you noticed. That's what I find so striking about comment sections whenever this claim appears. Ordinary viewers, people without journalism degrees, without access to palace sources, without professional research tools, immediately sense something is off. They ask the obvious questions. They note the implausibility. They do the basic logical work that professional journalists failed to do. You are right to be skeptical. Catherine deserves better. She deserves to have claims about her viewing habits subjected to basic fact-checking before they're repeated as established truth in documentary after documentary. She deserves the presumption that unverified memoir claims are unverified, not the treatment of those claims as gospel requiring her denial. William deserves better. He was working as a search and rescue pilot. He was raising 2 young children. He was fulfilling royal duties across the globe. He was flying air ambulance missions, 4 days on, 4 days off, responding to cardiac arrests and traffic accidents. The idea that he was simultaneously cultivating deep fandom for an obscure American legal drama on Dave deserves at minimum a raised eyebrow from journalists covering the story. And you deserve better. You deserve journalists who treat you as intelligent adults capable of evaluating evidence, rather than passive consumers to be fed whatever narrative emerges from a publishing deal. The Suits claim is a small thing, in the grand scheme of royal coverage. It's not the most dramatic assertion from Spare. It's not the most consequential. But that's precisely why it matters. If journalists can't muster basic skepticism for a claim this easily examined, if they can't note that Suits aired on Dave alongside Storage Hunters and Lizard Lick Towing, that no corroboration exists, that the timeline and context raise obvious questions, how are we supposed to trust their coverage of claims that actually matter? Media accountability isn't about rage. It isn't about proving someone is a liar. It's about demanding that the people whose job is to inform us actually do the work of verification, context, and critical analysis. On this small claim about a television show, they failed. And you noticed before they did. Trust that instinct. The evidence supports it. When something doesn't add up, when a claim seems implausible, when context is missing, when the only source is someone with an obvious interest in a particular narrative, you're allowed to be skeptical. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to demand better. That's not conspiracy thinking. That's critical thinking. The same critical thinking that journalists are supposed to practice, and increasingly don't. Next time you see a documentary repeat the claim that William and Catherine were massive fans of Suits, you'll have the context they didn't provide. You'll know about Dave. You'll know about the 1.8% viewing share. You'll know about the home of witty banter, and Storage Hunters, and Lizard Lick Towing. You'll know that Meghan Markle didn't exist in British media consciousness before Harry. You'll know that no corroboration exists beyond one memoir. You'll know about William's RAF shifts and air ambulance rotations and 24-hour operational duties. You'll know about the tours and the babies and the schedule that leaves precious little time for obscure American legal dramas. You were right to doubt. The evidence supports your skepticism. And maybe, just maybe, if enough people demand better coverage, journalists will remember what their job is supposed to be. Subscribe for more stories like this.